This is my 2014 Ram ProMaster camper van. Built from a DHL delivery truck that spent its life in New York City, is now retired to the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, where it will spend its time attending NASCAR races throughout the year. And because this is primarily a NASCAR-based channel, we have incorporated a little bit of NASCAR into the build, so make sure to stay tuned. I'm somewhat poor, and so value means a lot to me. So I began looking across the nation for a van that I could afford. And I found this one up in Columbus, Ohio, straight from the auction, DHL discharged, and it's had its issues. But overall, for a delivery van that's spent its life in the world's largest city, it's in pretty good condition. But as you can see, there's been some patchwork just to hold things together, as it's taken some abuse. My main concern in the purchase, since it was so many hours away, was just making sure that it got home. Once it did that, I thought I can fix whatever might be wrong with it. But there seemed to be no problems on the trip. It did great. Came with wonderful delivery shelves. Those were easy to take out. Those were a $5,000 value I found online. As you can see, it's the short 137 inch wheelbase up front. They had an old monitor literally duct taped to the dash. There had been a leak in the roof since they had taken some type of signal transmitter they had bolted to the roof there out and not plugged the holes. So there'd been a lot of leaks. And of course there's a jump seat over here instead of a regular seat, so they can be in and out and the floor's tore up. When you're building something on the cheap, first thing you got to do is get to Harbor Freight. That's where you're really going to find the deals.
Pro Speed, Ultra Pro Speed, and Show Car Glaze.
Show Car, I think, is...
And then wax.
Let's go Ultra Pro 210. What's the 210 versus the 110?
It's like a $10 difference.
I'll leave all this in here so you can see. We don't really know what we're talking about. It's all an experiment as we go. This is my buddy Tim. He's gonna paint this sucker up a little bit, so he's polishing out, seeing what we can do with what paint DHL put on there for us. The signs were pretty handy on the trip back, making sure people got out of the way. But they've been basically welded straight onto the body, so we've got to knock those out there. Behind the panels, the hazmat panels that we've removed the pop rivets from here, you can see they've just dabbed silicone behind it to let it set as they go down. There's some dirt collected behind that one, some New York leaves. So I'm taking a non-scratch tool from the Harbor Freight and just peeling that off. So this is on like double-sided tape and just clips, right?
Yeah, just cutting the tape right now.
Now I'm noticing as you're pulling that back, it's white under it, meaning
they just taped off around it.
They taped those suckers. Well, they actually taped it off pretty well. You got to give them that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah. Okay. Here you go. You're getting into the deep tape right there. That's what's holding it.
Another clip in there somewhere too.
Ooh. Yeah. That's how the trim panel comes off. We got a good little dent in there, better than I would have thought.
Come out before the other one goes on, or those won't
right.
hold.
Yeah. You can tell there was a little push in. They replaced this mirror before we made the purchase. And then after the replacement, after we pull everything out, looks just good as new, or close enough. All right, so we try to keep sponsors used. Blaster here from the BJ McLeod car. We trying it out, putting it on some topical rust spots and down in holes. Tim, as he's getting ready to patch up top.
Best guess is it's just getting in around
the edges.
Yeah,
it's very light too.
Where those inserts are.
You can see here they had reinforced the door where someone had worked their way into it and cut to pry the doors open to rob the truck. And it was quite hard to actually get that removed. In the meantime, I was changing out a headlight. One was holding water and really fogged up instead of fooling with it. I thought it was just easier to buy one online that's brand new and switch it out. Have less problems. Tim's welding back the seam as opposed to the pop rivets there. ProMasters are notoriously bad for having problems with the coolant reservoir, and it's really just a problem of cheap plastic wearing out, especially right around where the words are for the high or the low. And so that's something that definitely has to be switched out, that I'm getting out of here as I began to rebuild the entire cooling system altogether anyway. The grill is horrendously faded, so I'm gonna just put a little coat on here to see what I can make happen to get some color to it.
No more cuts. Yeah, grinder makes me the welder I am.
Tim has laid in a great weld and is now putting the Bondo in to fill in the holes on the back where the bad things are happening, and filling in the holes where the signs have been. That took a whole day. Fast forward, and everything's dried out a little bit. Here we are again, sanding down what we've laid in there inside the garage. We went to the local car quest that mixes paint, and we told them we wanted DHL yellow. I happen to have some old planters here that we can use as a table that I'm getting ready to throw away anyway, so it doesn't matter if the paint gets on them. And I've got some old pieces of PVC pipe here we're going to use to make a tent so that we can paint this in a very professional manner in my backyard. Improvise and make our own airflow system. In this day and age, going to Harbor Freight, buying a paint gun, using it one time and not even having to clean it out is cheaper than buying anything else. Tim uses that GI training. We noticed when we went to pick it up, there's a few minor things under the hood. The part you see sticking out forward is the power steering cooler, which has been bent up and damaged, so it's definitely got to be switched out. Nothing substantial, but you could smell coolant quite often, which is a common problem with the Ram ProMasters I've found. So based on the looks as you can see here, I decided it was best to go ahead and just completely change out the whole system there. So I'm going to pull the radiator out. The air intake here from the filter is put together with electrical tape, which seems to be effective, but I would rather go ahead and just update that piece. Many of these parts Mopar no longer wants to sell you. They simply just stopped making parts for a lot of things as they make changes. There's the radiator after everything's moved out from the front of it, and you can see there's a mess. So we have radiator fluid, and we have a number of other things here that have to be disconnected as well. So we've got power steering fluid, and we've got radiator fluid drainage here. Once the radiator's out, there's just the engine sitting there sideways with the transmission connected to it on the right hand side. Once the radiator's back in and everything starts to go back into place, you can see everything lined up there. Still have everything disconnected for the power steering over here on this side though. And Nick stopped by to help I and Tim with the disassembly process early in the beginning. These poles were just bolted through the floor. Trying to remove the wall panels was a larger challenge than I thought it would be. They were really secured in there. Once all the panels are out, I really feel like we're at a point of the starting of the build that we're going to do here. And to be honest with you, it was an exciting time, an exciting process, but it's the first time I've ever done this. So I spent a lot of time, hours even, drilling out these pop rivets dead in the center to try to screw out the actual screw part so that it will collapse on itself and I could pull it out. I broke a lot of drill bits doing that, then figured out to start with a very small bit, work my way in, larger bit, so on, work my way up, route it out. Spent hours doing that, wasted time. The crowbar is efficient. And pulling the panels out, still had to grind off a lot of the pop rivets that previously held them in there. the inside interior walkthrough wall holds the jump seat on, we had to remove parts of the wall to be able to remove the jump seat before putting it back together. I decided to take the van to a local transmission shop just to have the fluid changed. Unfortunately, it turned into a much larger process than that. The owner called and assured me that he found metal inside the transmission pan and encouraged me to have it rebuilt. Upon returning home with the van, you can hear what happened from one of my security cameras. The transmission had fallen down underneath the car, but had not hit the ground. It was suspended in air because it was still attached to the side of the engine. They had not put the motor mount back on the transmission side. When I backed up, it just simply fell off. The other side, the one motor mount, was holding everything up in the air, so I called the owners to find out what could be done. They came to my home 3 days later, jacked the transmission up with a floor jack, and reattached it to the mount, and then took the van with them back to their shop. You can see there are random bolts still sitting in the cowl, parts that they didn't reattach back to the engine even when they put it together the second time. The van came back making the roaring sound that you hear. Upon returning the van to their shop for a third time, it remained there for 2 months. Finally, after speaking with a lawyer, the proper adjustments were made. There seems to be no problems with the transmission. The emergency brake had seen better days, but with some of the rust, a spray, and a wire brush, we're able to bring it back to life. I knew right away I wanted everything to run off of a central location and where I could place my battery, so I began to lay wires in first thing with the insulation, should I change my mind during the build process. Use the 3M Industrial Super Heavy Spray-On Glue. It works great. A lot of people talk about getting sheep's wool and things. It's very expensive. They're also afraid of using house insulation like I am here because of the fibers, but the way I'm laying everything in, it's going to be sealed up, carpet laid on it that catches anything, so I'm not worried about anything blowing in the air. This driver's seat has seen things in its day that I dare not even dream about, and so we relieve it from its service, and where we will replace it with more luxurious seating. You can see, even though we've already cleaned once, the New York City grime is still everywhere. These seats are brand new out of a Honda Odyssey van, never used, from a conversion factory. Got them from a fellow NASCAR fan at a really great deal. My father-in-law, a professional welder by trade, is going to help make some modifications to those seats. The gentleman I got them from had planned to use them. He was building a 67, I believe, Corvette, and going to put these seats in it. So he'd already put some sliding rollers there, and we just accommodated onto the original seat as I bolted it down. Up in the front, you can see the holes here where they removed all of their equipment that worked as a GPS or tracking device on the roof of DHL, and a lot of the wires and power lines that they have here that they left behind for us. Meanwhile, over here I'm removing the factory stereo. When we bought this unit, it said it was locked. The factory stereo did. Had no idea what the code was, and luckily the driver, whoever owned it, had taken the sunshade and wrote a number up there, and I tried the numbers and it worked and unlocked it, but we're replacing this with a whole monitor deck system, so this comes out pretty easy. I'm ashamed to say I spent way too much time dealing with the backup camera right off the bat, trying to leave the camera that was in there and just hook it to the stereo, and I wasted so much time and finally gave up, rewired everything, and just bought a very cheap camera that works even better. Here's Tim up on the top of the van again, putting the fiberglass in those holes to overlay that, and then Binks, the neighborhood cat, here giving his approval of the work, making sure a good union job's been done. With all the insulation rolled into the back, I began to put carpet in between the spaces and lay carpet onto the slabs that we had already pulled out of there, so that we could reinsert those and save a lot of cash that way instead of buying pre-made parts. We did buy pre-made panels from Uplift for the doors and the roof. We thought this was a good way to go because of the insulation factor that they also gave to us, and the clean cuts. So they came out looking really good. Really not a hard thing to deal with. I was almost able to put the roof in by myself. As you can see here, over a few tries of me failing, finally I get a little help from Crystal and my father-in-law Gary. They just clip right in. They have like a pop rivet system that pushes up into the pre-existing holes that are already there. So it's a really nice thing. Started cutting out wood for the upper parts to be able to reinforce so we can hang up things, shelves, TVs, things like that, giving a better bracing area for everything as I'm running all the electronics and electricity up through there. You see, here's the TV mount. I brought it through with sinking screws there and with some force back to them, and then also in the middle with that reinforced, and then down on the other side. It's pretty sturdy. The driver's seat does have something in it, though, that will trigger that we don't have the driver's airbag. And there's no way to fix that other than messing with the airbag system, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to remove the airbag from the driver's seat and simply just attach it to the bottom of my new seat and then plug it in so all the readings are right. And should it be deployed, well, whatever tools I keep behind the driver's seat will be extra safe. We decided to go with a composite flooring in the back because it looked good. It's waterproof, animal-proof. We have dogs. And it was really cheap. We buy anything we can on wholesale or cheaper to be able to save some money. As you can see, I got all the carpeting done here, and some of it, just like the wheel wells, they won't be seen, but I wanted the soundproofing and the moisture proofing there. And then started building the bed frame that will go over the wheel wells, connect. A lot faster than it actually took. There's no need to have a camper van if it doesn't have a nice TV in it. So, got to get that installed right away. I wanted it set up so that while we're out barbecuing or doing whatever we're doing, just hanging out waiting on the race or the game or whatever we go to, we could watch the TV and pre-game from whatever angle we liked. Now I'm putting a small shelf system right above where the couch is, so I can put a ventilation system in there. You can see they've got a filter there. I'm going to put a fan in there with a switch on it just to pull air through and go up through a hose on the wall that will go out the front and discharge for fresh air for us. And also another light there, and a reading light with the little bendable arm and everything. Boxing in everything after the floor's down. We'd bought the couch very early in the van process, and so it had been taking up a lot of space in our living room. We picked up a good deal on a nice mattress at the local Sam's Club, full size. One reason everyone says to go with the Ram ProMaster is your ability to sleep like this, that the other ones don't have this width. Here's where we're running the hose. You can see it'll come back around the wall, and then we'll actually go out over the vent. And then it's going to connect in there and some wires by a switch that we have down here. Over here's where the main circuitry for the van's going to happen. The headboard, basically, and then we're going to have plug-ins over here on this side also between the TV. And then one down at the bottom. The couch pulls out into a bed also that's 6 foot. So should anybody else be staying down in that area, they can have a plug-in as needed. We got the Delta 2 power station. Got a really good deal on it. It has the solar panel with it, so we can put it out and refeed it as it's using electricity at the same time. Doing some test runs here before I got the backboard up. I used the same material that I had for the floor. It's not how it's built. It has wood behind it, but just as a color matching idea for a wall, we just covered it in that because we also knew it would be easy for cleanup. The lights have multiple settings. These are lights that are made to go into RVs. And I wired in a plug in the back, so basically all we have to do is take our main plug, plug into there, and that plugs the van into a battery, or wherever we're at. If we're at a campsite, we can plug directly into their power. Anyway, just as long as we have an extension cord, the van in the back's able to be powered. A little more trim in here and getting things in place. Getting a view of the underlights. The LEDs have been placed there for the basement area, as you might call it. So I wanted to get something that allowed me to be able to make changes to the system as I needed. And so with this little app here and this dongle and this interface, I'm able to do anything a dealer's able to do. And even though it wasn't completely ready, Darlington was calling, so we decided to take it on its maiden voyage. I and Justin headed down for a night to watch the spring race in 24. Now that trip did not require a headliner, so waiting for us at home is the original headliner and the fabric I'm going to try to replace it with. Why not just buy a new one? You say, well, that's a great question. They don't make this one anymore. There's no possible way to get it. And also, I want to make it look a little more me. So we're going to put some NASCAR racing fabric in there just to mix it up a little bit for fun with the boys. For whatever reason they designed this headliner in this fashion, it was a poor idea. They replaced it, I believe, halfway through the model year, or possibly the second model year from what I can find. It's all Fiat, though. This is stuff they've built over in Europe for years and years before they brought them over and started building them in Mexico for the U.S. market back in 13. These pieces of foam are an absolute mess and should never be moved out of their resting places. They're very hard to get placed back where they need to go, and then everything on top of that lined up for the screws to hit. And this wrap brings us to a little bit of NASCAR built right into our van. This wrap is wrap that was left over from Richard Petty Motorsports' Best Buy car about 10 years ago. And I acquired at a very reasonable deal. And we're going to take it and we're going to make use of it and wrap some of that Richard Petty NASCAR energy right into this build. It's actually suggested that wrap be thrown away after 7 years, if not used. We do not let that deter us. It did not come out perfect. Wrap this old does have its issues, but for what we had, we did a very fine job, I do believe. Enough to really give us a feel of not being a DHL delivery truck. The spare tire had never existed. DHL had removed it as soon as they got the van and had never moved the plug again. It was rusted completely shut. And after quite a while of trying to find other methods, it was decided it must be cut into pieces. Underneath the plastic lay just a simple bolt, easily moved without the plastic ring on it now. We bought a brand new rim off of eBay and had it shipped in and a tire put on it. Had all the tire sensors put in. The van had several recalls on it as far back as its manufacturing year. DHL had just simply done services themselves, so I took it into the local dealer and had them go through and do everything that needed to be done for free. And finally, the front brush guard was the last thing to be added. As I began the process, I found it harder than it needed to be. The diagram didn't line up to what I saw in real life. By the time you can get down to where the bolts are to attach everything, you've pretty much got to remove the whole front end bumper system, which isn't really much in the long run, and I should have done to start with. But on doing this, we discovered the bumper itself, the actual metal bumper, was attached upside down. Perhaps it had been in a wreck somewhere in New York City, and the DHL replacement guy put it on wrong, or perhaps it came out of the factory upside down. We do not know. But after fixing that, and then building it together, and a little more help from Tim again, we got it all bolted on and ready to go. We weren't sure about the silver wrap at first, but I think it really makes the grill stand out. Gives it a really nice look. Upon buying the van in July of 2023, I said it shouldn't be a big deal. 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks, a whole month, and I'll have it ready to go. By the time this entire adventure came to an end, it's been 1 year. In what everyone calls the basement, we keep everything stored that we might need for a little trip out. Folding chairs, tables, dog tent. Up in front, we've got a refrigerator/freezer that can be changed to any settings we want. The front end cleaned out and ready to go. At nighttime, there's plenty of light. And even though space is limited, we're able to maximize it with proper positioning of our layout. Was it fun to build? Yes. Was it frustrating to build? Yes. Would you do it again? I don't think so. It's ready to be our little home away from home, our little hotel room while we're at the NASCAR tracks, a place where we can grab a break before our adventure continues. But it's much more than an old delivery van to us. It's the idea of freedom, that we can still go out and do what we want to do and not have to rush back at every moment's notice to something waiting for us at home. We can be free. We can live in the moment and go where the wind takes us. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch this build video. If you're a NASCAR fan, please subscribe to our channel. We give away free things on our show every week. Tune in, be a part of the fun. And again, thank you for clicking.